Welcome to Beyond the Tour. This is Jake, and with me as always is Luke. How are you?
Thanks, Jake. Back for episode 18. And of course, we've been gripped by FedEx Cup Playoff fever.
We have Keegan making a late run and looking to take out the title next week at the Eastlake.
Yeah, that's right. Old Stink Eye Bradley gets the W this week. Not one that we probably saw coming, but current Ryder Cup captain or future Ryder Cup captain certainly put himself in the frame.
Did we see JT stick around and make sure he congratulated him in Fowler sort of mould?
I'm sure there were all manner of congratulations from players far and wide, grovelling for a captain's pick. I'm sure Billy Horschel was quick on the phone like he was with Aaron Rai a week or two ago.
I was on JT watch coming down the stretch there. He was, for a lot of it, outside of that top 30, which I thought would have been pretty good. I'm not a huge fan of JT. He just rubs me the wrong way, a little bit arrogant or something. There's something about him. It's a bit more, maybe it's country club snob, but there's something about him. It just doesn't connect.
Yeah, I think he certainly polarises people, JT. He's been one of my fave golfers, probably until more recently, because the results certainly haven't backed up the swag. And so the shine's come off the wall a little bit for me with JT. But when he was certainly in his prime, winning majors and multiple PGA Tour events in the same year, I just love the shot making that he'd do. And he really put his money where his mouth is, so to speak, but not so recently.
No, he's certainly not a boring golfer. There was that whole sort of generation. Sam Burns is probably another one that's a little bit similar, but they're really fun to watch. They're not boring golfers at all.
And with JT, you do get excitement. You ride the highs and lows, and he's got flaws just as all of us do, but they do seem to come out on course and feature prominently when he's not playing so well.
Let's jump straight into the BMW Championship. As mentioned, won by Keegan. He beat Sam Burns, Ludwig, who wasn't amazing on Sunday, and Adam Scott, who I thought maybe his putter wasn't incredible over the weekend, but he was net positive with the putter. I think you've got to take the good with the bad with someone like Adam who misses those short putts. Overall, he's trending.
Yeah, Adam just kills me. I've closed the book on him. Don't think he's going to win anymore. It's too hard riding the Adam Scott roller coaster. And then all of a sudden he goes and shoots a course record, equal course record 63 on, I think, Friday to get himself the 36-hole lead by 3. And I'm back in. Only to be disappointed, unfortunately, by what seems to be his real Achilles heel. So I think you're right. Putting, he was leading the field through the first 2 rounds in strokes gained putting. I think he'd gained 5 shots on the field and was just rolling them in beautifully from any sort of distance. But as we've seen with Scotty under the gun, when the pressure comes, those par putts that are in that 4 to 8 foot range, they just seem to continuously slide by when the tournament's on the line. And that, unfortunately, is what happened on the back 9 on Sunday.
Yep, it certainly was. I guess looking at some of the others, so Cam Davis also, he finished T5, so he had a great day. It wasn't enough to get him into that top 30. And then the other one, I guess, let us down, really. It was Jason Day. So I've always been on his back since his really solid run of world number 1. Ever since then, he's not been able to realistically play 4 days of solid golf. So there's always one round. And here at the BMW Championship, that was round 1 with the 78. He come out then and was under par in the next 3 rounds, but he shot himself out of the top 30.
Yeah, J-Day finished, I think, 33rd, so just outside the cut line for Eastlake this coming weekend for the Tour Championship. Was all in on J-Day through that sort of 2015, 2016. Even before then, actually, I was right on board probably from the early 2010s and loved him as a player. We've talked previously about just how dominant and imposing he was as a player when he had Colin Swatton on the bag. Those two were just an incredible duo. But it seems to be a long way from there. Even though he's had a better season and his form has been trending, he's just not in that very top tier anymore.
Ludwig, it's a bit ho-hum. He doesn't seem to have that killer. I don't know. To me, he doesn't have that killer in him. He just trundles along. We've seen it at the Masters. This is another one here where he was there or thereabouts, but never really threatened or looked to take it by the scruff of the neck.
Yeah, he was always lurking, wasn't he, in this event? And you were waiting for him to grab it by the scruff of the neck and make it his own. He can make golf look incredibly easy at times. And it's that Mark Waugh cricket thing. Is Mark Waugh really trying, or has it just come so naturally to him? It feels to me that Ludwig's got a bit of that laconic approach to him, but it might just be a style thing rather than an attitude thing. But he, as I say, can make golf look really easy. He's no fuss. He's a quick player and he's got that smooth but powerful swing. But what killed him this time, and I guess we saw this at Pinehurst as well when he was in contention at the US Open, is that he makes these untimely mistakes. Just when you think he's going to kick on with it, out pop these untimely bogeys or whatnot to really put him behind the eight ball. If you have a look at his round on Saturday, he had 3 bogeys and a double in that, but he still wasn't out of it come into Sundays. If he can remove some of those untimely errors, unforced errors from his game, look out the rest of the field, because it does seem to come very easily to him.
Do you think that's just an experience thing? Think that's something he will learn and pick up?
I think so. I guess the flip side to that is it's scar tissue that's developing. So it's an interesting sort of conundrum. Is it a case that he just needs a bit more experience under the belt, or have some of these falters that we've seen so far this year started to be banked in the memory and they start to pop up at inopportune times throughout the course of a tournament?
Yeah. Henrik Stenson, that's who actually reminds me of a little bit.
Yeah, fast player,
yep.
Another Swede, right? Not a bad comparison. There's quite a few good Swedes going around at the moment.
The entire Nordic region is really starting to come through the ranks. So yeah, it's an exciting time for golf, I think. There's a lot of talent coming onto the scene or already on the scene. Now let's look at next week at Eastlake. We've got Xander and Scotty, Xander was pretty good again. He maintained his form. He was finished with the top 5. Scotty was a little bit further out of it this week, wasn't he?
I just had Wi-Fi issues, so I didn't hear anything that you just said then.
Yeah, Xander had finished top 5, so he was pretty solid. Scotty looks to me that's like he's struggling a little bit now, just from a couple of things he's been saying. So it looks like there's a bit of a change of mindset, or there could be something underlying going on there, which it just seems we're seeing also some on social media, some posts of him showing a little bit of, or just not his sort of normal demeanor. So we saw that ball that stayed up on the bank and he wanted to come back down. He was huffing and puffing about it. And pre-tournament, we saw another video which I posted on or shared on of him. Just his body language just doesn't look good. Like he hit a shot, it wasn't out of the middle, not a good result. He drops his head and moping around a little bit.
When you're accustomed to winning every week and it doesn't happen, it's going to get you pretty irritated, isn't it? But yeah, Scotty Schauffele's problem this week seemed to be the iron play. He was well off the pace in terms of strokes gained approach. I think he was 45th out of 50th in the field. So that's very unusual for Scotty. He was still, I think, T2 off the tee. So he was giving himself plenty of opportunity from the fairway, but just wasn't able to hit the decent iron shots that we're used to seeing from him when he wins. So he'll be pretty disappointed with a T33 finish. And he talked about Xander, just the consistency for Xander this year has been incredible. And as we said last week on the pod, he's really lurking for the $25 million purse this coming week at Eastlake. And it's probably likely to still be a shootout between Scotty and Xander for the FedEx Cup playoff.
Do you have Scotty as favourite still for Eastlake, or you thinking Xander?
Well, I don't know. I guess he does start 2 shots ahead. Giving Scotty 2 shots head start any time is going to be difficult to claw back. But I guess Xander could be a deserving favourite. Probably a flip a coin at this point in time. Just
his whole mindset last month hasn't looked fantastic for Scotty. The telling comment for me was him touching on the FedEx Cup and the structure of it and the fact that it wasn't a season-long race. It was very similar to him playing at Pinehurst, being off the fairways. He seemed to really hate that sort of inconsistency. So he seems to, when he can't control everything, his mindset seems to flip a little bit. And maybe this is one of those situations where he knows he's been dominant for the entire year, but that it really hasn't benefited him outside of a couple of strokes coming into Eastlake that he could potentially lose.
Yeah, and I guess if you're in his position, you're thinking, what have I got to do to win one of these things? Having 7 wins on the board throughout the course of the year, you'd think you'd be that far ahead that no one could really catch you. So it's going to be an intriguing sort of that plays out in the coming week, and whether Scotty can readjust mentally and get himself back to where he needs to be. We've seen him do that time and time again with some of the stuff he's had thrown at him this year. It wouldn't surprise me if he does. We are at the pointy end of the season. Let's see how he goes.
Rory didn't start very well, but came home okay. We saw him snap his driver in the final round. What do you think of that? Do you think it was purpose? Or?
I saw plenty of beat up on social media about it. Then when I saw the incident itself, he was clearly frustrated and he was leaning on it harder than he should have been. But some of those things can snap reasonably easily. Like we've seen people snap a shaft just from swinging a normal golf swing.
Yep.
So I didn't think too much of it, but it's still a little bit of banter with Rory, isn't it?
Yeah, I also think that followed up him throwing the club in the lake as well. So the thing is, because he leant down when he snapped the driver, and to me, it looked like he was picking up a tee, but then he snapped it and forgot about the tee. So I wasn't sure. Like it could have been either way. It could have been just and because we only saw it in slow motion, or I only saw it in slow motion, I couldn't really tell how quick it actually unfolded. But it wasn't too much in it.
I didn't think so, but we've seen Rory, the little Irishman, run hot. There could have been something in it.
What did you think of Castle Pines?
I was quite interested by Castle Pines. That's certainly my first look at it. The elevation changes were really interesting and provided some testing shots, particularly on that back 9 on Sunday when the wind was up. I can't remember what hole it was. It might have been 13, the long par 3, where there was lots of wind and they were way up high hitting to a lower green. When you're under pressure, putting the ball on the green with 20-mile-an-hour winds with those sorts of elevation changes is a real test, and Keegan was up to it. And we saw Scotty wasn't. He made some really bad errors putting the ball in bunkers and hit some incredible bunker shots. Like I think that downhill one towards the water from a plug lie in the bunker was one of the best bunker shots I've ever seen, and probably the best bunker shot Scotty's ever hit. But not able to make the putt to save the par. That's the difference in the end. If that drops, then he's not the one shot behind and we might have a playoff, but wasn't to be for him. Those 4 to 6 footers just cost him. But I think the silver lining for Scotty is, as you say, he's made Eastlake, which he certainly didn't expect to. His comments at the tournament spoke about how he's had an inconsistent season, a frustrating season, and he didn't think even just a matter of weeks ago that he'd be playing the final. So he's happy about that, and now he's locked in his spot for the President's Cup for the national team, and that's his 11th straight appearance at the President's Cup. So something that he'll be proud of, no doubt.
He had a very solid start to the season, finished in the top 10 twice, and a few other pretty high finishes. Wasn't great through the middle of the season when it counts, and he's coming good again now. So he is sitting second on the race to Dubai as well. So we will probably see him in some of the events over there. But I think he's got to be pretty happy with that season. So he won't require any sponsors exemptions next season to the signature events to free it up.
Which is a relief for PGA Tour headquarters, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, I think they can now look at some of the other directors. Peter Malnati, maybe.
Although Webb stepped down now, hasn't he? But he certainly took advantage. But look, we probably haven't paid enough attention to the actual winner, Keegan. So Keegan's now got 3 PGA Tour victories in the last 2 years, which is, according to a tweet from Kyle Porter, 1 more win than Fowler, Thomas, Spieth, Cantlay and Morikawa combined. And Keegan must be looking on that stat going, it just grinds my gears that I didn't get picked for the Ryder Cup.
Oh, absolutely. Like a particular, I guess, of those guys, really, anyone, Morikawa has been pretty good this year, hasn't he? But even when you're combining, like just looking at the stats quickly here now, in the last 2 seasons, it's only 1 less than Xander as well, adding Xander to that list, and he's got 1 less victory than all of those guys combined.
Does he pick himself as a playing captain?
I think he said he's not going to. The only way he'll play, the only way he wants to play is that he gets the automatic selection. But I don't know, the drum's beating. I think it should not be the captain, to be honest. That's the problem.
Like, when have we seen a player in form, like winning on tour, given the captaincy? I can't recall. It may have been done previously, but it does seem odd and, almost like an unintentional conflict of interest in that regard.
Yeah.
Puts him himself in a difficult spot. So, as you say, maybe the best thing is that he automatically qualifies on points and then it takes that decision out of his hands. But if he continues this sort of form into next year, I think he's got every right to at least throw himself in the mix for a captain's pick.
I would like to see him pick himself, just back himself in.
It'd create some interest, wouldn't it? Because people would be tuned in to see how the captain's pick actually pans out in those circumstances. Maybe it's a good thing for the Ryder Cup.
Yeah. Yeah, the committee that picked him included Zach Johnson and JT. So just that selection in itself was pretty crazy. There we are.
Agree with that. After a ZJ charity event too, wasn't it?
JT probably attended that, I think. Now, the Women's Open at St Andrews, Lydia Ko ended up winning by 2. It was fairly close, sort of heading down that back nine. Nelly, a couple of others had chances.
Shin, yep.
Yeah, but they just couldn't close. None of them had a few sort of short putts that they missed. And to the contrary, Lydia Ko was on. So she threw down the gauntlet to everybody else, finishing in a couple of groups ahead of them. It was very impressive.
Yeah, as you say, there were plenty in contention. So I think there was a 4-way tie for the lead with only 3 or 4 holes to go. So they were all bunched up there at 6 under, deep into the back nine on Sunday. So an awesome leaderboard. The Women's Open couldn't have been happier with what was unfolding there in terms of the top 6 places all went to former or current number ones in the world. The cream certainly rose to the top at St Andrews, which of course is fitting for the home of golf. Lydia Ko capped off an incredible fortnight of golf where she's won the gold medal at the Olympics. She's been inducted into the Hall of Fame and now she's taken out a Women's Open at St Andrews. She must be pinching herself right now.
She was so dominant early on in her career and went out into the wilderness and struggled a little bit in the last couple of years with some streaky form, but she certainly looks back now and she is so fun to watch. She had her out there, I think on the 14th or thereabouts, hitting driver off the deck, which I absolutely love seeing. The commentators didn't really like it. They thought it was quite risky, but I think particularly on links courses, the driver off the deck is a pretty safe because you've got firm fairways. So you're not really hitting it fat. Fat will bounce through like almost hitting off mats. And in those windy conditions, it takes a lot of spin off the ball as well. So you get that predictable launch and you know where the ball's going and you get a bit of a rollout on the firm fairways as well. So I don't think it's as difficult as they make it out to be, but yeah, it's good to see it. I really like that.
Yeah, and she combined that sort of interesting and exciting play with just real composure on the holes that mattered coming down the stretch. And birdieing 18 was really the clutch. Having been a few groups ahead of the chasing pack, it just left the rest of the players with too much to do. It was only one shot at that stage, but they all then faltered and that created the 2-shot lead in the end. I'm sure Nelly will feel like this was one that got away. She got herself to 8 under, a couple of shot lead, but then went 5 over through her last 5 holes. And there are 2 pretty big mistakes that she made. The double on 14 was just a train wreck. She had that encounter with the road hole bunker, which Smithy was able to successfully navigate. She had a good bunker shot out of there, but just not able to make the putt. Left it short in the jaws. So 2 big mistakes. That was one place that you just couldn't go on 17 was that bunker. She would have known that standing on the tee to have a double bogey on a par 5 with the tournament on the line and leading. She'll really feel like she let that one slip, I'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. It looked like a little bit of maybe a little mental scarring from earlier in the season where she had that early lead.
Yeah, fair point.
Yep. But the leaderboard was so good. What was the first top 6 were all world number ones, past world number ones, was it?
Yeah, that's right. You just couldn't have scripted it better for the Open, and it was a great sort of test of golf for the ladies, I think, St Andrews. We had
it was.
the winner at 7 under, which is a score that you are okay with for a major championship, being the winning score. In fact, it's around what it should be. And then 16 players under par through the 4 rounds there. So it certainly sorted the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah, it certainly did. The conditions were fairly linksy all week, which was also good to see. So it was, I guess, a contributing factor a little bit. But yeah, it's so good watching links golf. It's so much less predictable. And as a rule, the best golfers find the way to the top of the leaderboard as well.
Yeah, where the golf course permits that. A good golf course should be able to create separation between the best players and the worst. Allow the best players to separate themselves, certainly firm and fast conditions where you're not having long rough or backboards stop players from being penalised to the full extent for errant shots. And then he'd probably say a course like Valhalla just created a very bunched leaderboard because it was difficult for the best players to really show their difference.
Yep. Now for the Aussies, it wasn't a great major showing for the Aussies, was it? We've got Grace Kim was the best at T37. And the only other one to make the cut was Steph Kiriakou, who had a 7 over in the final round.
Yeah, it was a bit of a bloodbath for the Aussies, unfortunately. Steph had got herself in a reasonable position going into that final round, but then, as you say, a disastrous 7 over final round ended her chances of an Evian-style finish. All good learning for her, I think, and showing that she can mix it up in the majors now. Maybe the Evian wasn't just a flash in the pan. I was really happy to see Grace finish our best, but 37th is still well off the pace. And then the rest of the Aussies all missed the cut. So the big hopes that we had for Hannah Green, Minjee Lee, etc., all faded to nothing. And I was really shocked about Minjee. I thought this would be a great opportunity for her, but not to be, unfortunately.
Not to be. Charlie Hull started off very well.
I thought we were going to be inundated with ripping darts and vaping content when she grabbed the first round lead. But we were spared from that as she wasn't able to sustain the lead for the final 3 rounds.
Yeah, I saw a clip there with her putting one-handed on the phone on the putting green. She's a bit of a lad, isn't she?
She certainly is. I think it'd be great fun.
Yeah, it certainly would. All right, actually, I'll tell you what I do want to speak about just quickly is the pace of play. Now, we're in a major championship and tough conditions, but we're 6-hour plus rounds pretty much all 4 days. It's getting pretty close to territory that needs to be stopped, doesn't it?
Yeah, Wi-Fi issues again, but I heard pace of play needs to be stopped.
Yeah.
6-hour rounds and 3 hours to get through just the turn. Like, why is it so hard? I get that weather can play a part, and it was raining at times there at St Andrews, and so you're wiping down clubs and it takes you longer to get set and get ready to go. And obviously with the wind blowing as well, there are times where you'll back off a ball. But there's just no reason for those sorts of time frames, particularly where it's not like they've got hackers in front of them or that the course is overly crowded like we would encounter at a public course on a Saturday or a Sunday or something like that. So you just can't understand or fathom how it can take too long. But again, it gets back to enforcement. There are officials there that have powers to enforce things and sanctions they can impose, but they choose to take a light touch.
It's surprising in a way because the women in particular are so aware of their position in the game and promoting the sport that they'll stop and talk to everybody. Their interaction with fans is well and truly above, particularly the PGA Tour. But they seem to be very conscious of that. And yet there's this huge blind spot around pace of play, which I think definitely has to be led by the referees. But you would think that they would, as a group, as a collective, sort of the damage that it does for their product.
I don't think the players do, and it's certainly not going to be a player-led revolt. There's a few players out there that we know get frustrated with slow play. Brooksy, we know that he gets frustrated with slow play, and you look at Aberg, and he's a very fast player, and it can be done, but the increasing prevalence in aim point I think also slows it down. And I heard some comments, or maybe I saw a social media clip from Bryson the other day saying that he walks every putt, he paces every putt out. And so he's got a 60-foot putt. He's pacing that out and looking at it from every angle, downhill, uphill, side, lie. And then someone puts aim point on top of that. It just all adds up on the greens, doesn't it?
It does. It does. And you can do all of that and still maintain your position all within the rules. So it's easy to do. You pace out a putt. You're looking at it from the side angle, you from behind the hole, continue your circle around from the other side, get behind your putt, away you go. So I think they're all capable of doing it. I think they're just without it being police, they're just happy to take just even guys who will sit around and wait until someone else has putted rather than prepare for their putt. It's taking the piss. That's what it is. And it has to be enforced.
Of course. And the players will take as much latitude as the officials will give them. It's like in a game of football, AFL or rugby league. The players will get away with as much as they can until they're penalised. And then that starts to set some boundaries. But it's rare that we're seeing any sort of sanction actually imposed. Yes, some players can get put on the clock, but we're not seeing stroke penalties or anything like that would really have some teeth and some impact. And we're getting to a situation now where we've got more players with a reputation for slow play than fast play.
Yep, absolutely. All right, now before switching to this week's events, let's just touch on the Danish Open, which was dominated by the French.
Yes, the French did well. I didn't see much of this at all. No. The French boys finishing 1 and 2 and also 4th. So they'd have to be pretty happy with that.
I think so. And from our perspective, Micheluzzi finished T10. So he's had a solid showing as well.
That's right. And hopefully he can take that form into this week's event at the British Masters. Love to see him do well there.
Yep. Now, let's head to Eastlake. So Atlanta, this is the Tour Championship. It was recently renovated, so it was closed pretty much immediately after last year's Tour Championship. Andrew Green was the architect that headed up the renovation. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays and how the changes advantage or disadvantage certain players.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what the changes look like. I haven't seen much of what has been done. We've seen Eastlake for many years now as the final destination for the PGA Tour in its season. So it will be definitely worth a look to see how the renovations to this original Donald Ross design come out. That's going to be a certain point of interest. And then, of course, we've got a $25 million US purse, pretty significant bounty for these guys to be playing for. But as we've seen in past years, it's really the top 5 players ranked going into Eastlake that really have a realistic chance of winning.
Do you reckon it takes it down to Aberg and 5, or starting 5 back from Scotty?
Can you really give him more than 5 shots? I'm not even sure it's that much. Look, Scotty will have to come back to the field for someone like Ludwig to be in contention. Scotty starting at -10, Xander at -8, Hideki -7. There's some big-time golfers there that you're giving up a lead to. So it's going to have to be flat out for Aberg at 5. The guys behind him, there's some horsepower at 4 under in terms of Rory, Morikawa, Clark, Burns, Cantlay. But I suspect giving Schauffele a 6-shot lead is just too much.
Yeah, he's a very good front runner. We've seen in a lot of his wins where he's had the lead, he doesn't give it up very easily. It would still be surprising to see him give it away. I think Xander can win it. Hideki, there's probably some question marks there given his withdrawal last week with the potential back issues. So maybe he's protecting that for this week. He certainly has the form line to be able to go out and win it as well. But you wouldn't anticipate Scotty losing it.
No, you don't anticipate that. And maybe it'll just come back to the approach game again. So if he can sort that out between last week and this week, you'd think he should be able to close the door with a 2-shot lead. And I mean, if Xander doesn't fire, then he's got even a bigger lead again, right? Yep. And Hideki, putting under pressure feels a bit Adam Scottish at times. So Scotty, like we talked before, is Scotty favourite? Maybe slightly favourite, but certainly if he sorts out the approach issues from last week, he should get the job done.
A lot of money on the line from first to second. So there's a $12.5 million difference between first and second. First place is taking home 25 million, second 12.5. Scotty's won, 40 odd million this year, hasn't he? A lot of money.
It's an obscene amount of money.
You're pretty much, so you're talking
75 million or something.
Yeah, you're pretty close to, so all the way down to 12th, there's $1 million for 12th place. Yeah. And 30th, there's 550,000. So like, it's a lot of money.
This is what's happened now with the competition from Liv, is that the purses and the prizes have been increased and boosted to astronomical levels. And surely it's not sustainable, but if Liv went away tomorrow, would the players agree to backing the purses down?
You'd think not. I don't think it'd be up to them at that point, would it?
It gets down to a question of sustainability for the tour. And you would imagine that the top brass from the tour would go into the players and say, if you guys want a tour that's going to last more than 3 or 4 years, we can't maintain purses of this size. It needs to be readjusted, and there needs to be a correction back to the actual market rate.
I have been thinking a lot the past week about the majors and how little value or how little they have to pay to have the position they do in the game. Like, for instance, I was thinking about Tiger and the PGA paying dearly to have Tiger get what he wants with the PGA Tour. But the beneficiary of Tiger is essentially the majors, and they don't pay anything back. Potentially, I was thinking about maybe the Masters, maybe some of their members are the ones that are sponsoring the tour and throwing dollars at the tour itself. And maybe that's where their power lies. But it's pretty crazy to think that the value of Tiger is essentially given to the majors and they're not paying for it.
And also, I guess it's the value of legacy. And I know that word's thrown around a lot, but the players still judge their careers based on major wins. And so that kind of does also put these major championships in a different bucket without them having to pay for that.
Until you say, imagine if, let's just say you get a rogue commissioner into the PGA Tour and they were to say, you know what, we are banning our players from playing in the Masters. We're moving the players to that week. You have to play that if you want to play on the PGA Tour. What do you think would happen?
That'd be a very interesting conundrum, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Or you say, okay, let's work out what the value derived from holding the Masters tournament is. And we want 50% of it. We're giving you all of our tour properties in terms of the players. You're not driving any sort of dollar value back to us, really. So you either give us a cut or they're not playing.
And look, there need to be significant changes to the way the PGA Tour is set up for that to happen, right? The thing that Liv has over the PGA Tour is that they've got contracted labour, whereas the PGA Tour have got a bunch of independent contractors. So Liv can dictate where they do and don't play.
Independent contractors that need, that's what I'm saying. If you had a competing event on the same week and the PGA Tour just decided they weren't going to release their players, it'd be an interesting conundrum to see what happened there. Like, it would be, the balance of power might shift.
Yeah, not something I think we'll see, but as you say, an interesting question to pose, that's for sure.
But yeah, I think they stay as quiet as possible and just go along with the status quo. I don't think they want to upset the apple cart at all, those guys, the majors.
No, they've got the injection of cash from SSG, and I think they're happy to feed on that for a little while longer.
Now, the other events this week, really, there's not much else outside of Scotty and winning or outside of winning the tournament. There's not much else, no real other storylines in the event, really, is there? Because it's just a cash grab. There's no, if you finish 30th, there's really no impact. You're in all of the events next season. It's just that one storyline, who wins it, and that's pretty much it to talk about, really. No,
because all the other stuff's been determined already. So it is just who gets the most cash and says they can claim the FedEx Cup.
Yeah. Now, the other events this week on the LPGA Tour, we've got the FM Championship. That's at TPC Boston, $3.8 million purse. That is an inaugural event, and it features one of the largest purses outside of the majors.
Yeah, a new event off the back of a 5-year partnership between the LPGA and FM, which is affiliated with Fenway Sports. And as we know, Fenway Sports is part of the SSG consortium that has invested money into the PGA Tour. So they're clearly bullish on the prospects for golf tours. I think that makes sense given what we've seen in terms of the increase in popularity of golf since COVID particularly. And so I think it's a case of let's work out how best to monetize it. And the PGA Tour haven't worked that out yet. There's probably greater chance for these guys to work it out in the LPGA Tour because they don't have a major competitor that's as threatening as what LIV is for the PGA Tour. I'm interested to see how this event actually unfolds. It's a fairly big purse and they're clearly trying to generate interest and attention.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how that goes with pretty much everybody playing there as well, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I hadn't seen the entry list as of our recording, but I would expect that it'll be a fairly strong field.
Yep. And the other one, as you mentioned earlier on the DP World Tour, is the British Masters. That this year is hosted by Sir Nick Faldo, featuring Tyrrell Hatton.
Featuring Tyrrell Hatton as a Rolex Series winner. So he got a start, which was lovely to see. Hosted by Nick Faldo. Oh, gosh, we'll have to listen to him carry on and parade around and just have his ego on full show for everybody to have to tolerate. But nonetheless, at the Belfry should be a good course. It's a good event. Surprised that there isn't a stronger field, but I guess we've got the Tour Championship going on. Hatton, Micheluzzi, Rasmus Højgaard, Alex Fitz, Manacero, there's the main names that jumped off the page to me.
Yeah, this event typically has been one of my favourites on tour, so it's disappointing to see that it's not as well supported in terms of the players who are playing. But as you say, up against the FedEx Cup. Is Billy playing? Billy Horschel? Is he there? Or I don't think he's...
I didn't see him in the entry list, but, wouldn't surprise me if he made a late appearance.
I don't even know if he's not playing. He's not playing it. Oh, no, he's in the Tour Championship, which explains why
he's
he's
in the
not
top
there.
30, Billy boy.
He would be. He loves playing on the European Tour now. Wraps up really then. The event's the main one really to see he's going to take the cash at Eastlake.
It's just a bit of a quiet period at the moment. Yeah, normally we have plenty to talk about in the final bag, but no, only a couple of things of note. Barstool president Mike Portnoy putting up $1 million for a tournament with content creators.
It's going to be... He was talking about just creators, so I don't know if it was golf specific, but he was talking about using handicap. I wouldn't want to be Barstool putting on an event like that with all the sandbagging going on amongst those guys, putting up $1 million. Jesus, try policing that.
Oh, mate, you should get yourself in a group with Trent.
It'd be good, wouldn't it? I'm sure he'd love to play with me.
You should reach out to him, you old pals.
Yeah, we'll get play. He was pretty unhappy, Trent, that he wasn't featured in the Creators Cup at Eastlake this week. All the top YouTube golfers and the Barstool guys were not included.
Well, that's a bit of a snub, isn't it? And a risky snub too, I would think, from the PGA Tour. I wonder why that is.
Just see, I think it was quite, not odd, like the YouTube guys, but they got Wes Bryan playing.
Oh.
Yeah, so like he's a tour member. You can't put him in the Creators Cup. Bryson was right. He should have been included. I think he asked where his invitation was, and he's got every right to be upset about that, given that Wes is playing.
Is Bryson doing his own social media commentary, or is someone doing that for him?
Oh, what do you mean, like on Twitter? I think it's him on Twitter.
Yeah, he's posted.
I think there's bits of him in there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then the other YouTube news was good. Was it the world record for the longest putt?
Yeah.
I did not.
Like, you've got to see it. It's just an incredibly long putt. I don't know how many attempts they had to make it, but it looked like it was 200 meters. It was just absolute monster.
I'm going to check it out. I think that's it for the week. It's a bit of a wrap. We'll come back next week and wrap up what happens on at Eastlake. We'll talk about all the cash that the guys have won, and maybe we'll see Wes Bryan lose in the Creators Cup. And we'll speak next week.
Thanks for listening.
Can you stop that?